So if you were to guess the theme or the topic of my homily from today's gospel, what do you think it might be? Woe. Yeah. And why is there a woe? It's because of hypocrisy. Quite a few years ago, I walked into the bar section of a restaurant to pick up some takeout meals for the guys in the rectory. And there were several guys older than I was at the time sitting at the bar. And so, also going along with the psalm about proclaiming God's mighty deeds, I said hello. And I got a lukewarm response. But undaunted, I introduced myself, asked if they were from the area, and they said, "Yep, Father." And I said, "Do you go to the nearby church?" Silence. One of the guys did say, "No way, Father." And I asked him why, and he responded, "Well, my brother, who is one of your ushers, is one of the biggest hypocrites that I know. And by the way, we don't get along." So, being a new priest at the time, this was a new one to me. And so I simply said, "Sorry to hear about you and your brother not getting along, but maybe you could come to a different mass. I know which ones he comes to. Besides," I said, "we are all works in progress." That happened a long time ago, but I always think about it when I reflect on this gospel passage from Matthew. It's the one where, as we heard, Jesus chastises the scribes and the Pharisees for their hypocrisy. On one hand, hypocrisy is by nature a detriment to the hypocrite's soul. For that person is not living as Christ is calling us to live. They're professing one thing and doing another. But as evidenced by the story of these two brothers, there's a secondary effect that goes beyond that person. In the case of the scribes and Pharisees, Jesus used the word hypocrite to mean that they were like actors who portray a character on a stage, pretending to be someone they are not. The scribes and the Pharisees were by profession in their positions of authority and honor, and so their visibility was greater, and so was their effect on whether they were practicing what they taught and how they held others accountable. I don't have to tell you that priests, religious brothers and sisters, and permanent deacons, we all have a platform that puts us in the spotlight, whether in the church or the public square. But as evidenced by the story of the two brothers, we all need to stay on guard, to stay on course with Jesus. This includes all the husbands and wives, the mothers and fathers, the older brothers and sisters, all our relatives, but also the teachers and the coaches and anyone in public life. Curtis, Mitch, and Edward Shree, two authors, have some great reflection questions I invite all of us to think about. The first one is this: quite simply, do I practice what I preach? Secondly, do I help others to live by God's standards, or do I simply instruct them on what the standards are? Number 3, do I perform religious actions to impress others or to obtain God's approval? The next one is, do I relate to people in a way that invites conversion, or do I imply by my actions that they are not welcome in the kingdom of God? And do I emphasize the lesser matters to the neglect of the big ones, justice and mercy and fidelity? And there is one other point about this topic of hypocrisy, and that is the fear of it causing people who, like all of us, are works in progress, to stay on the sidelines of serving in the vineyards of our parishes and our communities, or even in our families. Over the years, I've met a fair number of people who expressed this concern when I asked if they'd serve in a different way than they might have been in the church. They suffered the other end of the spectrum from what Jesus called the scribes and Pharisees out on. My brothers and sisters, no matter where we find ourselves today in relation to the congruency of the reality of where we are now and how we present ourselves, it is always good to take some time to think, to pray, to go to regular confession, and to encourage others along the way. For each of us are works in progress, but with the grace of God, on course.